So I guess let's start with Sunderland
Hmm.
because they've kind of kept up pretty well. I think obviously had an unbelievable start to the season. From November, like they had just a couple of draws. It was like Everton, for example, lost to Fulham, but then they beat Bournemouth on the weekend and drew at Anfield with Liverpool, which obviously isn't a kind of as huge an achievement as it used to be, perhaps. More so than just the result, though, I think their performance is what impressed me. With everything I say, there's a caveat of obviously Liverpool are weaker and teams are kind of taking more risks against them. But I was impressed at kind of how willing they were to engage in a more open game. In fact, like even at the start, I thought Sunderland looked a bit more threatening in like the first 15 minutes. How obviously they're defending collectively, dropping back, but also starting high up the pitch against like goal kicks, for example, and not just sinking into a low block, trying to stay compact in a mid block. And then what they do after turnovers, trying to play forward very quickly, not so much worried about retaining the ball. They did get the goal ultimately off a high turnover, obviously deflected shot as well, but the equalizer was also
Yeah.
deflected. Like good intent, positive approach. Yeah, deserved the point. I would say well enough. I mean, obviously at the end, after they dropped back and Liverpool equalized, they added more pressure, but they did hold on like well enough. And yeah, I mean, they're obviously overperforming their expected points and all the other metrics by a pretty significant margin. But I think just this kind of an approach is interesting to me because, like, if you contrast this to Burnley, like Burnley wouldn't do this. They would probably just drop back, like have all 10 people in their own half the whole time, and then send someone on the counter and hope it works out. Like Sunderland squad and Burnley's squad, there isn't a massive difference in quality. Isn't worth 13 points between them. And
Mm.
again, there's obviously underlying differences in the underlying numbers, but I think yeah, Sunderland do deserve credit for this approach that they've kind of taken.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that they do seem more willing to engage a bit higher up. And I think what we've learned in the Premier League, and I think this has been especially true of Liverpool this season, is that Liverpool are not great under pressure right now. But if you
Yeah.
let them camp out in the final third, they are still going to be able to do stuff, right? The problem is that they can't consistently get into the final third without giving up an awful lot going the other way. And I think the teams who played them earlier in the season were perhaps a little bit, were obviously basing it on last season and were more willing to cede that territory. Sunderland did build a squad that at least can compete physically in the
Yeah,
Premier League.
yeah,
Like
that's
that's
true.
something they really focused on. And as a result, like when you see them in these games, you think, well, athletically, this team is a match for the sides around them. That seems like something they were willing to pay a premium for.